Splat!
My name is Antony Lloyd, and I was a programmer on Croc. So I was at Argonaut for a while. Before we started Croc, I worked on a few games before that. So when I started on Croc, we actually started it from the very beginning. There was no work at all before that point. The first work we did was on the Saturn. At the very beginning on Croc, there was myself, Lewis Gordon, and Nick Cusworth. When we started, I was not sure what we were sort of planning to do. It was more a case of like, how do we build like a game that's sort of never been done before? And I think that was one of the difficult things we had to get over, was the fact that nobody's done this. We're not sure how to do it. What do we need to do? It was difficult to start because we didn't have a lot of documentation on, the consoles, how to do what we wanted to do with 3D. We had a demo which showed us how to draw a very simple landscape on the Saturn, and then we moved on to the PlayStation. But we had no tooling really. We Argonaut at the time were working on Brenda, so we could use that on PC, which gave us some good visualization of what it would look like. I think that's it. We sort of had to do all the tooling from the very start. No tooling was available, no editors or examples really. Yeah, so when we started, we called it Croc Editor. It wasn't on Windows, it was on PC. From DOS, you started it. You then, to do rapid prototyping of platforms, characters, anything like that, we would write something called strats in something called, I think we call it Argonaut Strategy Language, ASL for short. And that was a very quick way of adding virtually everything in the game to the game, which was quick. Whether it was a great idea long term, it did limit us a little bit of how much we could do, because it wasn't as fast as writing it all in native code, but it was quick to add levels, add ideas, so we could prototype gameplay ideas and then test them. And if they worked, brilliant, they went in the game. If they didn't work, they didn't go on the game. When we came up with the idea for a character, I think we went through a few iterations. We wanted something that was like upright, walked on 2 feet, and was instantly recognizable. The thing I remember is we gave him one tooth so we could see which way he was like orientated at any time, instead of two, and a backpack because he looked a bit drab without a backpack. It was just green, like lizard on screen. When we used to try things, we were mindful that it had to work on both the Saturn and the PlayStation. So it did limit us a little bit. Like, we didn't use triangles. A lot of people don't probably know that on Croc 1 or Croc, later the Gobbos, but we only used quads, and the textures had to be really limited because we weren't yet cross-platform on the Saturn as well, and it could only do quads, four-sided triangles, four-sided squares, rectangles. I think the team grew not that quickly. I remember we had an animator, then we needed artists, but it was quite a small team at all times. It was never a massive team. In fact, I think we stayed in the room we started in. So the room, I don't know how big it was, but it wasn't a massive room. And maybe at the peak, it had 20 people in it maximum, if that. Well, it was myself and Lewis were lead programmers, I believe. I did the Argonaut Strategy Language, the editor. Lewis handled a lot of the 3D, the animation system we used for the full motion video. Instead of doing videos, we had streamed in animations, so we didn't, the whole game felt the same. It never, just went to a really high-res video that looked like it was off from DVD. It carried on. You felt like you were still playing the game, and that was important. The way we divided work is, before that, I mostly worked on my own on projects, because it was on the SNES and the Amiga days. It was one program that did everything, but we could now divide the work between us based on what we were actually good at. So I'd had a lot of experience in writing like assembly, which used instructions to read the instruction. It would move left for 800 units, and I thought, we could use this for our strategy language. And Lewis was really good at 3D, and he'd done a lot of maths at uni and things like that. I never went to university, so I was just good at gameplay as well. So that's how we split that work up. When we didn't know how to do something, if it niggled us for quite a while, you go, maybe I can do that, get that working somehow. There was a bit of that. The way we went about milestones, I guess we'd call them that now. I don't know if we had that sort of system in place for milestones. Not internally, anyhow. At the start, it was mostly playing around, making the game what we wanted it to be. And then somebody probably came up with a date and we'd have to hit it. Putting the game together, when it all came together, was probably when we had an idea of how many levels we wanted, or lands. We got all those in place. And I believe the game was really bug-free for a long, long time, because of the way we developed it, and with the way we could author the levels. It meant we could very quickly make sure that everything was going to work. I can't remember how we polished everything, but there was a lot of polishing of making sure that there was a lot of secrets in the game. There's a lot of little hidden Easter eggs. Yeah, there's a few secrets. So I still watch videos thinking, because I can't remember all the secrets, and I watch them on YouTube and everything. I just remember one of the very first ones was, you start the game and there's a platform straight away, and if you jump on it 3 times, stomp on it, you get like a secret level. People find them. I don't know how they found them. It's always baffled me that, because they were so hidden. Croc 1, we had loading levels, but in fact, there was a nice touch that we knew how big the level data was. So Croc used to walk always from the left to right, and he'd always hit the right as it was about to load. Sometimes he had to walk a bit faster, sometimes he walked a bit slower. That's how we did that. We just knew how big the data was, timed it perfectly. I think because we used the animation streamed off disk, I think that gave us a lot of space for extra levels and extra textures, because we didn't have to have big movies on the disc. And I think at the time when people, it was the start of the CD-based consoles, people were just gravitating towards lots of full motion video in games. Because we didn't do that, we used it as just storage, apart from music. I believe actually the music was compressed as well. So even that is not as big as it would be on a regular CD. I think we used a different format, so that was small. We just had more space for data, so we could use more levels, more bosses, more characters, more textures. The way we laid out the texture pages on the consoles as well. I think we had 4 texture pages. Like the first one was for probably Croc and Antony's, Gobbos, the stuff numbers, fonts, and after that would have been level data. So every time we changed the levels, we could have new textures and a good way of managing that. Set in stone of what we'd do. 1 texture page for the main character, maybe 2 texture pages, and the rest of it for levels. I don't know if Croc actually had any vertical levels as such. I think it was all flat, as in it was all a big 2D grid. I remember in the editor, what we used to do is it was a bit like on the early like Commodore games, where it'd be like laid out in a just a grid fashion, and we'd decide to put what we used to call track pieces. I don't know if people have used that term before. These track pieces would all fit together. You drop one, and if it needed a corner, it'd place that where you needed it, and we could build up entire levels out of these track pieces, which would then just obviously because it's a you have track piece 0 there, track piece 1, track piece 1 again, track piece 1. You could store those in just a very small array of data for a whole massive level. Croc development was different to a lot of projects at Argonaut at the time because, yes, it was really inclusive, as in what people could do, and because anybody could just start their own little level and play around and just make ideas. They didn't need to get a programmer. They could just I want platform after platform after platform after platform, and before you know it, you've got like just the world's longest platform section in the game, and that's probably on the disc because somebody we played it for. That's actually good fun. It was a good way of doing development. I remember being really nice, and there was games after that I worked on that you couldn't really do that. I think until recently with the new mega engines out there, it's allowing more people to do that these days, which is it's really nice to see that. But yeah, we had tank controls. I remember that. So we were like, because we had built it for a PlayStation standard controller, can't call it PSX, and then they brought out the DualShock. Was it called the DualShock, or when they announced the controller, the PlayStation analog controller? I remember that we were kind of lucky because a lot of the Croc code itself was in C, so changing some of the movement code was much easier than if it was all in the strategy language. I think we had like a special command like play Croc or something like that. So Croc's little strategy would be play that and maybe set the object, do some animations. But I think the big problem for us at that time would be like how do we like convert everything, but also allow people to still use the old controllers because it was brand new and we had to support both, and we couldn't ruin one for the other. So we came up with a system that we thought at the time would be the best we can make it in the limited amount of time we had. I mean, it's difficult because I don't know if I can't remember if we did proper camera controls on it. Whereas now there's like a standard that people have come up with, but I don't know if ours adheres to that standard that people are used to today. I don't remember the time where we sort of said we're done, hands off. I think it was very difficult for us to say right, stop, because and at the time, obviously, when you pressed a disc, it wasn't like today's where you can just download a patch. That disc had to be that was it. That's what people were getting. There wasn't a version 2. It was that's it. You go gold, you ship it. I don't know if the Argonaut environment allowed us to do that. I kind of think we just sort of did that, and it was going to be ready when it was ready. I mean, we tried to stick to deadlines, and we used to work a lot of hours. I mean, everybody was there till very late at night. Sometimes overnight. We did work overnight a fair amount of times. At weekends, we used to do a lot of weekends as well. And we really loved what we was doing. So there'd be a bunch of people in. I don't think we just intentionally just ignore the deadlines. We just wanted it to be really, really good. The best we could make it. And we were really having fun as well. That's the other thing. It was such a fun project to work on. Yeah, but I'm sure somebody would have said at some point, "Oh, we've got demos." In fact, there was because I remember there was Oh, that mode, yeah, it would have been on Croc One. The gold disc when it was done, um, we had to get it to Japan, and it was that late that somebody had to get on an aeroplane and take it. Yeah, I can't remember why, like the age group that we sort of went for. I think it was the games we were playing at the time. We weren't playing like the Wipeouts or those sort of games. I guess we were playing more fun games. Well, not fun, but I don't know the word for it really. Cute. Yeah, the amount of hours. That's right. We were all fairly young, I believe. How old would I have been? In my 20s. I think we all were. I mean, we were roughly the same age. I'd probably play. I mean, I'd like to play Croc One again, just to see. Especially if it's now got new controls. Can't wait for that. I'll be able to play it. When you look back, I don't remember there being any problems. I remember it being smooth looking, fast looking, controlling well, uh, animating smoothly. Texture warping wasn't, I can't even remember it. If it did texture warp, I imagine it did. I've watched videos, but in my head, no, it was all smooth. It was like, playing it, games now 120 frames a second. It was butter smooth. When they pick it up and play it, they're gonna just remember how fun it was. It's gonna be like, oh yeah, I remember playing this. I can play it again. What you remember in your head is definitely different to probably if you looked at it now. I don't know how it would compare. It's because of a lot of it's what you remember. For me, I mean, maybe somebody who's never played the original, they picked it up. I think it'll stand up. I believe it's still fun.